Hello, everybody. I'm Gail Persicelli, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, Take Your iManage to the Next Level. I wish to thank Cornerstone.IT for sponsoring today's webinar. Before we start, I would like to mention that today's presentation will run about 45 to 60 minutes and will be recorded. We ask that all questions be entered into the Q&A box, and if we do not answer them during the presentation, we will address them at the end. At this time, I'll turn the webinar over to Jim.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We have a fun-filled demo. Nabil Ali from iManage will be presenting on some of the new products from iManage. Just to go over real quick what we're going to be demoing. We're going to be demoing the new professional client, the new web client. We'll also be demoing the integration with Microsoft Office, so specifically Word and Outlook. We'll also be showing the popular feature of flexible folders. It's been one of the more popular add-ins of late that helps reduce workspace design. And then we'll also go into some of the new security features, the Security Policy Manager for those folks who have ethical walls or conflict needs. We'll do the Security Policy Manager and also Threat Manager, which is another security tool that helps alert firms to unusual activity in their iManage environment. I'll be monitoring the questions and answers. I'll be monitoring the questions, and if it's appropriate at the time while Nabil is doing the demo, I'll interject and add that. If it's not, or if he's going to cover it a little bit later on, we'll address it later on or towards the end of the presentation. We do have a lot of information to cover, so we won't bore you with any slides, and we'll just kind of jump right into the demo. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nabil.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks everyone. So good morning, and what I'll be going through, as Jim mentioned, is taking a look at the Work 10 view from all the different applications that we're coming in from. So we'll start directly from the web interface. As you're looking at right now, you can see that this is my home page. Right when I get in, I'm logged in here as Jerry. As we start working through the system, you'll also see how this same look and feel is going to start presenting itself with the new Office integrations with Work 10. So as we go inside of Word and Outlook, you'll get the same user experience inside of those Office applications. And then finally, ending the Work 10 piece, we'll also look at collaborating with outside counsel or clients. So we'll see how we can also share content out. So right in my homepage over here, you'll see that when I first come inside of the system, the Work 10 view is developed in a way which allows you to pick up where you last left off. So as Jerry, you'll see that my Acme Audit Engagement contract is right up top over here. And this recent document view that's being displayed to me is also based on particular activities that I've taken on this file. So as an individual, you can craft your recent document list based on what's more important to you. If I'm also interested in documents I've printed, I can go ahead and hit that checkbox, and it'll provide me that new list based on those 4 activities. So it's really modeled around the shopping site type of style, and it also goes past activities and allows you to pick and choose based on which clients or matters you've been interacting with, who's authored these files, or any other profile information you want to pin on here. You can also customize the filter list. There are some documents over here that you'll notice that have a blue dot. There's one up in the top, and then there's several at the bottom over here. This is also a quick indicator for me as a user that's coming in to let me know that, hey, this is a document that's been edited since the last time you viewed it. So besides just tailoring it based on time frame, it's also tailoring it based on particular activities that other users have taken on these files. So I might want to jump inside of this 2018 Audit Engagement contract that Dave Olson's been working on. And similarly, right, if we were looking at the Aero Company Acquisition Agreement, if you hover over any of these and you don't understand something, it'll also let you know what's happening within this file. Now, besides looking at it from a document perspective, this entire view is also modeled around your matters. So your recent matters, your My Matters are available right at the ribbon bar up top. So as Jerry, I've been working on the Adobe Systems case, so you'll see it's right up top. I've accessed some content from it from today. If we prop this open, you'll see all of the folders that are representative for this type of matter file. One thing to note is several of these folders are yellow, and then you have a couple over here that have the white icon. This is an indicator that lets you know, hey, these folders are empty. So instead of having to drive into these and see if there are any opinions or advice or any infringement files, right at the high level, you'll know there is no content within here right now. Another style of folder, which we'll get into later on, is a folder that you've shared off to external parties, your clients, outside counsel, or even other departments, right? This is an iManage share folder, and an individual can create this on their own, and it's represented with this little blue icon over here. Now, let's say we're working on the Adobe Systems matter, and one of the key things that comes up continuously is giving the attorneys access to create folders, because they may work a little bit differently based on their practice area, but controlling that folder list. So with Work 10, we introduced the flexible folders option, which allows the practice area to first define a set of folders that will be created as part of the matter opening process. And then if attorneys need to create additional folders on top of that, they can always come inside of here, say, hey, I'm going to create a new folder, but it's going to be controlled based on the template that this was originally created from. So this Adobe Systems case, I can create a couple of additional folders, but it'll be based on the template file, right? So this will set governance surrounding this folder structure, so you don't have free-form folders all around all of your workspaces, and it'll be controlled with the specific metadata information you supply for this folder creation process. And it'll change based on a template. If we have real estate matters, M&A matters, right? Depending on where you start off from, it'll allow the user to choose from those sets of optional folders. So let's go back inside of the Adobe Systems matter. And the first thing you'll also see when you're within this view is the matter file itself has default views. So I can jump into all the latest documents for the Adobe Systems case, see everything that's been worked on in the last couple of days if I wanted to arrange it based on that time frame. Same thing goes if I wanted to go at a higher level. So if I wanted to see the clients that I'm currently working on, I can jump into the clients view. Let's go ahead and see all the documents that are being worked on for Microsoft. So first, you'll just see a dashboard view for Microsoft, a list of all the matter files, and then I can just see a list of all the content, all of your documents that are worked on for this case. So if a partner is coming inside of the environment, they want to quickly navigate to the clients that they've been engaged on and see the documents that are being worked on, they'll have a higher level view based on their interaction within the system. Now let's go back to the home page over here, and I want to start working on the Acme Audit Engagement Contract. So the first thing is on the right-hand side, you'll get a quick profile card, so you can enter in any comments as necessary that other users would also be able to see and also search against. And you can do it in line with the document list. So you can go through these, apply these at once. Same thing if you wanted to check out any versions or even preview the document, it'll be displayed in the right-hand side. And once you're ready, you can go ahead and expand this off and take a quick read for this file. Now, one important piece is when you're reading through this document, the pages over here are downloading on demand for you. So taking a look at how much bandwidth you have available and delivering the pages as you request them is an important piece, especially when you're viewing a large file. And when you are ready to view this, maybe in a full screen format, you can always expand this off and you'll get a full screen window over here. So similar to previously, right? We're not ready to edit this file. I'm just keeping it inside of my web browser over here. But as we're reading through this and we find a particular section, let's say the grant and scope of license, as we're reading through this, we can always navigate to a previous version of this document as well. So I can jump into the version tab, say, hey, I want to go ahead and check out version 8 for this file. And what it'll do is it'll keep track of exactly where you were at within that file and drop you back in that same location. So you'll see it dropped us back in page 3. Smaller documents is pretty trivial, but when you are reviewing a large document like a 50-page contract, jumping back and forth through page 42 becomes an additional task for the end user, additional load on the system when we're having to scroll through it. So keeping the pages in line, dropping the user back into their same location keeps the workflow seamless. Now I'm going to scroll through this, found another section that we needed to check up on for third-party developers, and then we'll jump back to version 9, and you'll see it'll do the same thing, right? As we were working through version 8, it'll keep track of that for version 9 now. Now I'm ready to edit this file, so you'll see there's a little pencil icon along with many other options you can take on this document. Once you go ahead and choose edit, this is where it's going to go inside of Microsoft Word and check the document out to you. Now you'll start working on the document as you typically do. So we have the Acme 2018 professional services contract opened up. You can go inside of here and make any changes that are necessary. So we'll go to the bottom over here, just add in changes by Jerry. And then we'll just go ahead and save this as a new version. So up at the top, choose Save As. And you'll see the window that you'll get over here is very similar to what you saw inside of the web view, right? So now we're taking that same UI that you saw inside of the web browser and building it inside of the Office application. So I can say revised section 7, save this in, and we've gone ahead and created version 10 for this document. Now, as we're working through this document and going through it further down the line, we can also start accessing some of the other pieces that we saw inside of the web view. So the first thing is, if I want to prop open, hey, who else has been working on this from a versioning aspect, just like you saw before, I can bring up the versioning panel on the right-hand side. So this becomes a sliding panel wherever you go. The whole point here is to provide a seamless experience as you're working on the document, so avoiding pop-up boxes and instead building it in line with the document editing process. So from here, the most important task comes in is, hey, I want to generate a red line between version 9 and version 10. You can always come in here, click the ellipsis, choose Compare, and this will utilize Microsoft Word's Compare utility, and third-party integrations have also built into the Work 10 API, so they can also take advantage of this and utilize the Compare function if you are using a partner integration. And you'll see from here, you can also open up any of the previous versions, print them, edit the comments, right? You'll have that same functionality that you had before. Now, if we're done working on this version side, and the last thing I want to check is, hey, has anyone emailed this document out? We can also bring up what's called the timeline view. And this shows you essentially how the document has evolved over time, right? Who's been editing this file, viewing it, emailing it off, printing it. Any activity that's been taken out of the document, your document history that you have, is presented in a more bar graph fashion, which you can pivot around based on activities. So I can say, has anyone emailed this document off in the last month? And you can see very quickly now that Jerry sent off version 9 on April 27th, right? Instead of having to scroll down in the document list, at a higher level, you'll get a snapshot of exactly what happened at this document. And this also allows you to pivot around which users have been working on it, or even the versioning aspect, right? So you can jump to a previous version and see who's been working on version 8 of this document. In this case, it's been Jerry throughout the entire process, but as you have additional collaborators on this file, right, you'll be able to drill down and see exactly who's been working on a particular version or who's taken on those particular activities. And once we're done with this, we can close this document off and your document's been checked back in as you typically work on these files. Now, staying inside of Microsoft Word, you'll see that if I go into the File Open dialog box and choose iManage as where I want to open these documents from, the view over here is very similar to what you saw inside of the web experience. You're seeing your recent documents, limiting it to Word files, obviously, since we're in Microsoft Word. Same thing goes for any of your matters or even from a folder level. But it's providing that consistent look and feel as you go from the web to Office to even Outlook, as we'll see later on. And if you don't find whatever you're looking for inside of this view, you can always just do a browse and search for any additional content that you may have worked on in the past. So you'll see when I do a file open over here, it's going to drop me back into that same recent document view you saw before. So as I'm working through this, we can highlight any document, make sure it is the correct one that we're looking for just by quickly previewing the file. So you'll have the preview rendition right alongside the document list, even inside of the file open pane. And if you want to get a bit granular, you'll see you'll still have the filters, right? Again, it's a sliding panel that comes up because we have a different type of style. It's a different real estate. So we can go ahead and pick and choose the filters by propping them open from the top right. Now, if I don't find the document that I'm looking for inside of this view, let's go ahead and search for something specific, right? So you'll see wherever you go, there's a search box up top. This also lives inside of the web browser, but most of the time when you're going to be searching is you're going to be looking for something as you're trying to open a file up. So in Word, I'm going to come in here and let's say I was looking for an Acme agreement. You'll see that as you start typing inside of this box, it'll make suggestions to you. So it'll ask you, hey, are you looking for the title of a document? Or are you looking for something within the body of the file, right? It's not going to recommend you search for the author or the document number since that's not what we've entered in here. But if we did enter in someone's name like Andrew, you'll see it'll recognize that and it'll say you might want to search against the author field. So it's essentially taking you step by step through the search experience. So instead of having to fill out a profile card, it'll just provide these predictions along the way. And the last one here, you'll see number, right? A lot of users just know the document number that they're going to be searching for. So as you type the number in, it'll just pivot to the number field. And once we're ready to conduct the search, let's say we did go to Acme Agreement, and we'll do our keyword search over here. The results that are going to come back for you over here are going to be personalized. So what this does is it takes a look at your recent activity in the system, which matter files you've been working on. So if I'm working on patent litigation cases and I search for an Acme Agreement, I'm going to see files that are based on my previous activity, my recent matter files that I've been working on, not something from the real estate or the M&A matters, right? So it really hones down on your result set based on your world. And it's very similar to how other sites like Google does it based on location, right? You search for a coffee shop, it finds one that's closer to you versus further away. In that same type of manner, the iManage system is going to do it surrounding your matter files. So you'll see I'll get back 40 results in my personalized view. And if we did want to search across the entire repository for content that I have access to, we can always toggle to the full view. And now you'll see I'll get back 71 results, right? Almost double the results. And that's how in a larger data set, it'll give you a more granular set, and it'll also improve the performance. So you don't have to wait for thousands and thousands of documents coming back that are not relevant to what you're looking for. And once we're done with this, right, we can close this off. Now, one other piece in here I want to mention is when you are working on any of these files, all of your content with the Work 10 experience is also going to be synchronized locally for you for offline editing. So you'll see whichever tab we're in, if we're in the documents, folders, matters, there's a radio button for offline. And when you don't have internet access, that's the one that it's going to default to. So any recent content that you've been working on, as well as any content you want to manually take offline, you'll be able to select those, synchronize them offline, and then there's an agent that works in the back end that'll take care of that for you, so you don't have to wait for that to finish up. Once that's complete, all that content is locally available, so when you do lose internet connection or you get on a flight, you'll still be able to revise any of those files. And then once you regain the connection, it'll go ahead and provide it to you in the iManage Offline tab, and you can synchronize your changes back in. Now I'm done working on Word, so what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and check our emails. So I'm going to bring up Outlook over here. And you're going to see I'm sitting in my inbox as Jerry. Have my emails in the center, so pretty familiar view that most of you have seen before. On the right-hand side, though, this is where the iManage Work 10 experience comes into play. So now, again, it lives right alongside your emails. You'll have that same UI that you saw previously. So it's building everything from the web and adding it inside of the Office application now. So it's a much lighter weight add-in in regards to living inside of the Office application, specifically inside of Outlook. Since it's just an XML page, it's a web UI, right? It can deliver it much faster, and it's built directly from the server side. The other piece is something like this that exists on the right side can always be expanded, moved around as necessary, but it can also be undocked. So as you're working on these matter files, if I have two monitors and I want to move this completely on the right-hand side, I can come inside of here, undock this panel, and you'll see it'll just essentially pluck it out of Outlook. And now you can just drag it onto your secondary screen. And it still has a tight integration with an Outlook. And what I mean by that is you can drag and drop between the two interfaces. So since I only have one screen over here, I'm going to dock this back in. And what I'll do is let's take some emails that we've received, and let's go ahead and file them. So some of these emails belong in the Aero Company acquisition agreement. So I'll just take these three, and then we can just go ahead and drop it in the correspondence folder. And what it'll do is it'll file those emails. So you'll see you'll get an hourglass when it's initially been queued up, and when it's complete, it'll give you the green checkbox letting you know these emails have been filed. The same thing goes if we're wanting to pull content out. So if we're replying to this email by Dave, we can go ahead and grab any of our documents, and you could take multiple files as necessary, and just drag and drop them directly inside of the email. So this will add links, or if you wanted to add copies of documents, right, you'll just use keyboard shortcuts and it'll take care of that for you. But the seamless drag and drop also applies, once again, if you undock this panel and move it to that secondary screen, because it is still tied within the Outlook interface.
Nabil, if I could just add, I think it's worth reiterating your comment about that's an HTML5 interface that's being delivered from the server. So if there's any updates made to your iManage servers, it will appear in that HTML5 panel. There's no updating required on the client side because it's literally just looking back at the server.
Correct. We're building that all from the server side. So if there were some changes that were added on the server, it'll propagate down to the client. And that also goes when we make configurations or specific customizations, right? Everything that's built in the iManage Control Center allows you to apply updates to all the clients because we're delivering it directly from the web view. Thank you, Jim. The other piece you'll see is whenever we do select some of these emails, this is where you'll get some of the options that we saw previously. So if you wanted to take content offline, right, you can just choose to take these two documents offline, and then the agent on the back end will synchronize these two files for you. Now, besides just doing the drag and drop and moving the emails, then you'll still have the email management toolbar living right up top. So as you hover over and highlight any of these emails, it'll make a suggestion based on your previous filing history. So Dave over here has been working on the Fabrinsky Holdings. Happy with that, go ahead and hit the quick file button, and it'll go ahead and file that email. So this is as it was previously. The algorithm has been improved to provide better recommendations, and it also allows you to file emails into multiple locations. So if you were working on an IP case, which is where it comes up more often than not, right, and you had these two emails you wanted to bring into multiple matter files, you can always come inside of here first. You'll get your suggestions, but you can also just do a browse and file, and this will allow you to pick from multiple locations at once. So you don't have to go through, file them, pick the other one. You can just select all the matter files and do a multi-file. And then the last way is linking your Outlook folders. So represented with these blue folder icons, I've linked these 3 Outlook folders directly to my iManage folders. So anything you place inside of here will automatically be copied or moved into iManage. So take an already existing one, we can right click on it, we can link it. Additionally, if you create a new one, it'll ask you if you want to link it as part of that process, and all your emails will be moved in. Now also for sending an email outbound, you'll see that the work 10 piece also comes into play over here when we're inserting iManage attachments, as well as the toolbar has been updated. So if I was sending this off to Andrew, let him know, hey, here's the ACME agreement. As part of this process, I can go ahead, choose, I want to file this into the Aero Company matter. And in this view, if I didn't want to drag and drop, especially because I'm on one monitor, so it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that, we can always just go ahead and insert iManage attachment. And you're going to see it's the same view, right? Same thing that we saw when we were doing a file open inside of Word. You'll get back to that same view. If you want to search for documents, it'll also present you with your recent searches that you were conducting, so you can always refresh them. Or if you were jumping into your recent matter files, right, you can find the documents from a folder perspective and then go ahead and attach that document as a copy or a link directly into this email. By default, it'll just save it to attached file, but this can modify that as well. Okay, so we covered the work web, we went through Word, and we also hit on Outlook. Now, what I want to go into is if we're starting to share content with an outside party, how do we get that done, right? You can always send documents as attachments or upload it to a third-party site, but what we've done is also built an integration directly inside of the workspaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back inside of the Adobe Systems case that we were previously looking at. And if you remember, we had the blue folder over here, which I created out for the client. So the client can access any documents I place inside of this folder. They can also send me documents back. So as an end user, I can come inside of here, create a new shared folder on demand. So you don't have to contact IT for any of this. You can also create multiple shared folders. So if you were separating it out based on the party that you're going to be working with, right, you could separate the security out. And once this folder has been created, you can add anyone directly with their email address. So for this client Adobe Systems folder that I've created, I can say, hey, Andrew needs access to this. So add his email address. And you can choose to add him as a collaborator or a guest. A co-owner is pretty reserved for whoever else is internal that has access to these files, but a collaborator will allow them to send documents to you as well as receive the files that you've sent over to them. a guest just provides download access to the file. So limiting it based on whichever use case is coming up. So I'll add Andrew as a collaborator on here. You can notify him, let him know, hey, please send me these documents, or take a look at the patent provision that we just sent over to you, and go ahead and send this off. Now, Andrew will receive an email notification that'll let him know, hey, Jerry just invited you to this iManage share folder. Click here to sign up for an account. And once he's signed up, he'll have access to the same blue folder that you're seeing over here. Now, he has one account, right? It's a self-registration process. So if other firms are also sending documents out, right, he has that one account to maintain to gain access to any files. And from your side, you don't have to maintain all the user accounts. Now, if we open this up and look at it from Andrew's perspective or Jerry's perspective, right, if I click into this folder, you'll see all the content that's been shared out. And this will include content that I've shared out to Andrew, as well as content that Andrew has shared back to me. So you can see there's a 1029 patent that I originally sent off to Andrew. Andrew can open this up, get a quick view for this document, read through it, and if you needed to receive revisions back, he can go ahead and download this file, and now he'll have a local copy of it on his machine. If we needed to receive revisions, he can go ahead and also add a new version back into the repository. So he could say, hey, I need to go ahead and send my revisions back, add in the 1029 patent, and it'll go ahead and create version 2 for the file. So you're seeing where the collaborative piece comes in, right? We send documents, revise them, and it's all contained within this space, which is fully audited, secured, and you can also import these documents back into the original files. So once you've received the revisions back in from Andrew, and we want to import it back in as a new version, Jerry can come inside of here, save this document to iManage Work, and it can go ahead and allow him to bring it in as a new version if it's an already existing file, or if it's not, he can bring it in as a new document. Now, Andrew can also send documents back to me. So Andrew can grab documents from his desktop. This also includes folders, right? As long as you gave him the collaborator access, and he can just drag and drop it into here. And this will just go ahead, create all the folders, start uploading all the content, and you'll also receive a notification email when all of this is complete. So both parties can subscribe to this folder, and they'll see whenever new content has been added in, if new content has been edited, or even deleted. Now, this collaborative front works from a folder perspective. It also works just from a single document. So if you just needed to send a document as a download link, you can always come in here, right-click it, go into Share, and send it as a secure link. And this will just go ahead, send that party, whoever you add into the email address line, a quick download link to the document. Okay.
Hey, Nabil,
yeah,
Nabil,
go ahead,
just
John.
a quick question. Someone asked earlier about this personalized view. Can you, let me just get the exact question. What are the personalized view criteria, and what's the scope of personalized view?
So this recent documents view is based on the documents that you've worked on. So this is, the scope is based on documents that you've touched. So any documents that you take any of these activities on, and if your filter is applied, those are the documents that will show up inside of this recent document list.
Got it, thank you.
All right, so let's go on to the security products now. And so we're going to switch sides a little bit. So as we mentioned before, there are two security tools. One is called Security Policy Manager, which is your need-to-know ethical wall solution. And the second piece is Threat Manager, which really takes a look at if someone did come inside of your system, how can we detect that behavior pattern and find out if someone is leaving the firm or if someone's account was compromised from a phishing attack. So Security Policy Manager first will allow you to quickly apply policies on your clients or your matters, and also set up exclusionary rules for your ethical walls on who doesn't have access to this or which opposing cases that are being worked on. Now, the big difference here in Security Policy Manager versus other tools which provide similar functionality is, since we own the solution, we actually apply a policy instantaneously. So anytime we're jumping inside of a client or a matter file and we're securing it down, you don't have to wait for that security to propagate down to the document level. We don't stamp an ACL level change at the document, folder, or workspace level. Instead, we supply a higher level policy on each of these fields, which happens instantaneously. So there's also no impact on the indexer. There's no re-indexing that has to happen, since the way that we develop this is a little bit different. So let's take an example over here. We're working with a Ford Motor Company. So you're going to see first we've ingested in all of our clients and matter files, and as well as all of our users directly from Active Directory. When we are ready to go ahead and secure these matter files down, first it can be something that's automatically brought in based on the import process from the time and billing system. You can also make it so individuals can come in here and add use on demand or based on a request that comes in. So we'll take the Johnson lawsuit, for example, and you can see it's currently open, meaning the security that's followed in this case is whatever's applied at the workspace level. We want to go ahead and secure the Johnson lawsuit down. So it's only accessible by 3 individuals that we've identified as part of the staffing list. So I'm going to go inside of security over here, and we'll change this matter from being open to restricted. Now, right when I apply that policy and choose save, only these 3 users on this staffing list now have access to this matter file. Everyone else that may have been on the ACL before, right, they no longer have access to this. So again, it's an instantaneous change, and the other piece is no one is able to look up this information anymore from any lookup tables. So this includes when you're performing a search, or you're adding it in based on the client matter criteria in a profile card. You won't see this information since it has been restricted down. So only Art McCarthy and Carla Pierce here have access to this. So when we restricted it, you can also choose if users can request access to this. So by default, if it is a highly secure matter, it'll just leave it to no access can be requested. But you can go through a few different workflow processes. So it can be approved by an administrator. So this would be your higher level administrator that has access at an NRT admin level, or it can go through any member of the matter team or the responsible attorney. And lastly, if you did want to provide a research pass to certain individuals, they can always request access, and you can provide them access for 24 or 48 hours, whatever time limit that you choose. So what I'll do in this case is any member can approve access to this matter file and save it in. Now, from the outside, an individual can come into the Security Policy Manager dashboard. So each user can also log into the system. So in this case, I'll come in here as Jerry. Once Jerry signs in, the first thing he'll see is the matter files that he has access to that have been secured down. So he only has access to one matter that's been secured on a need-to-know basis. But what he can do is he can come in here, request access, and he has to know the client and matter ID that he's requesting access for. Since that matter file is secured down, he can't look up this information. And then he can quickly provide a reason and submit his request off. Now what's going to happen is the members of the matter team, if that's the workflow that we set up, are going to receive an email notification. It'll notify them and let them know, hey, Jerry requested access to this. And directly from their emails, whether it's on their phones or their laptops, right, they can click approve or deny access. And at that point, Jerry's action will take place. He'll either be granted access or he won't. So it can be completely email driven. They don't have to come inside of the web portal and approve that request. Now, if we did switch back to the main admin dashboard, just because I don't have the emails that are coming in here, I'll show you how you can take that action directly from the web dashboard. So you'll see there's an access request tab, and there's Jerry's request that just came in at 10:33. So any member of the matter team in this case can come in here, add him as a team member or as a support staff. So this will pretty much determine what level of security access, meaning can he add other users? Can he view the history, right? Depending on what's been set up at the matter security level, that's what he would have access to. So I can add him as a team member, and now Jerry has access to this matter file. So right when we approve him, he's instantaneously added to the staffing list. You can also add individuals manually at any point in time. So I can always come in here. If I refresh this now, you'll see that Jerry's been added to the staffing list. But we can come in here, add members. So we can always come in here, add entire groups or individual users and make them part of the matter team. And the same thing goes if we were going from the conflicted side of things, right? From an exclusionary wall, who doesn't have access to this or who's working on opposing matter files. So your end-sided wall in this case is something that you would apply here. So anyone that's working on the corporate federal tax prep, trademark renewal, both of these are the opposing teams in this case. So no one has access to the Johnson lawsuit that's also working on those individual matters and vice versa. So same thing, you can come in here, add your opposing teams. So I can say forward, right? We can go in the same way, view the matter files, and add the matters. And once again, instantaneously, that security policy will be applied, and those individuals don't have access to this matter. Now, Security Policy Manager also goes beyond just the iManage system. So you can have this, so it's also applying policy across other repositories like the time and billing system, network drives, and it's built on an agent framework, so it's continuously being expanded to other repositories. So you'll see in this case, if I jump into locations, I'm also governing the file share. So we have a folder on our network drive for Ford Motor Company. So any changes that we change or apply in the staffing list or any of our exclusionary sites will also go down to our Windows file share. So these same individuals will have access and the other ones won't on that site. So if you're also adding in your time and billing system, that's where you will just also add in that new location and it'll follow the same policy. Now, any changes that are made from a security aspect are logged inside of the history trail over here. So if a client requests an audit log of who has access based on a particular time frame or who's had access and now they don't, you can send them this full audit trail so you can download this report off and it'll show you how the security was changed at every point in time. So any action that we take, it'll be captured in here, something that the work audit log won't capture, right? If you're changing and adding users or removing users, it doesn't capture it in that detail, whereas this will capture all of that. So you have this full audit log.
Hey, Nabil, I had a related question when we were talking about share. The question was, can you tell if a document is shared? So if person A shares a document, will an internal person B know that it's been shared?
So there is a audit track that will show that it's been shared out, but there isn't any icon or sort that will show that. So you would have to go inside of the timeline view or inside of the document history, and it'll show that that document's been shared out.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And then the last thing on here is from the notifications piece. As I mentioned, support staff, your team have different access levels from a security side on the Johnson lawsuit. So you can choose who gets notified anytime a change is made to the matter files. So any general details, or if we added any opposing teams, right, you can say everyone in the team as well as users with access receive an email notification whenever anything has changed. So you can supply all these as part of a default level, and you'll receive an email anytime something has happened on this. Now your matter files as well as your client files can be grouped up. So if you wanted to apply security at a higher level, let's say a grouping of clients, so maybe some subsidiaries that were following a similar policy, you could set them up in a client group and apply that policy. And same thing goes if you wanted to do it based on a grouping of matter files. So if you wanted to do it based on practice area, maybe all the bankruptcy matters are following a similar policy, you can group them up in cases and set it up that way as well. So you can see in this case, these are all the matter files for bankruptcy, and then you can choose who has access to it from the case file instead of individual matters. Now going into just the users piece for the last bit, this will just highlight how each user has a list of assistants that can also follow them. So if we were looking at Barbara over here, you'll see first, this is just from a user perspective, any conflicts she has. But if she had any assistants, so if we add any assistants for Barbara over here, let's say we added Andrew and Art, right? Anytime Barbara's been added into a matter file from a security side, her assistants will follow her. So you don't have to add those individually. It'll just come with that. And if you had a lateral hire and you needed to block them off from certain matters that they've worked on in the past, right? You can go ahead and add them inside the conflict list from here. So you don't have to go into the individual matters, add Barbara Cummings. I can just directly come into Barbara's profile, jump inside of any of these matter files, and block her off right at once. So now Barbara's not going to have access to both of these matter files that we just added.
And Nabil,
yeah.
Sorry, there was a question about security. You had showed that network drive
Mhm.
security. The question is, how would the security be replicated to network drives?
So for the network drives, it uses from the Windows side central access policy. That's the technology that we're using from Windows. We're using the central access policy to add those users instead of doing it individually on the ACL side. So it still uses those AD accounts, has a direct integration with the domain controller to edit the central access policy.
Got it. Thank you.
And lastly, if you wanted to generate a report on anything that you saw inside of Security Policy Manager, you can do it at the individual matter levels and generate them, or you can jump into reports. And let's say I wanted to see all the conflicted users for a particular matter file. You can type in that ID and download it as a PDF or an Excel sheet. And this is continuously being expanded. So we've taken a lot of feedback from our customers. And if you have additional feedback from a reporting side, we'll continuously expand this off and also make it so it's customizable. Okay, so jumping into the other side of security then, right? Security Policy Manager restricts it so you have siloed sets of data on which individuals have access to it. But if someone, let's say, was leaving the firm and they were taking a lot of data out, or if their account was compromised, how do we catch that malicious behavior? So with Threat Manager, and Threat Manager is something that's actually, you can embed directly inside of Control Center, which is the admin utility, or it can live on its own. So you'll see it shows up at the bottom over here. Threat Manager can run a monitoring rule every so often that you designate. And you can choose which users to target this rule against. And it uses machine learning on the back end to identify behavioral changes. Who's worked one way in the past, and how are they working in the future, right? In the next couple of days, it's utilizing that previous behavioral activity that it's trained the system on. So the more activity you have in the system, the better reporting and the better analysis that it performs. So Threat Manager can do first just an on-demand analysis, so you can quickly see how your system is performing. So I can just come inside of the Threat Manager view, and as an example, I'll jump into exclusions over here. And what it'll do is it'll give you an outlier analysis. It'll show you the way that your typical centroid of users are performing based on number of clients, the number of matters, and the number of documents they've been accessing. It normalizes these factors, and you'll see the ones that are breaking this chain completely, right? Now, this could be for two reasons. One is maybe it is something that you quickly identified as someone is either taking a lot of content out or their account's been compromised, but it can also be someone that is legitimately working on these files. Maybe they're in IT, or they're in training. They are going to be touching a lot of documents. So you can add these individuals to a global exclusion list and run a different rule against them. But you'll see as an example, Jennifer comes back in here. And if I click on Jennifer, it'll give you a quick view as to why she's coming back as an outlier in this case. You'll see where her count went beyond her normal threshold, right? So typical client count is in 12, 14, and it suddenly jumped to over 50 in this case. So something definitely happened on this side. So you can always drill down into here and see exactly which client she had the most amount of activity on. And you could download these as reports. And the same thing goes from a matters or the document level. You'll be able to drill down into any of these categories and see what actually happened. Now, this is giving me a quick dashboard, right? You can always come inside of here, utilize a specific threshold that you've identified in the past, and run it against the last month or the last week's worth of data. Now, the other piece you could do is you can run monitoring rules, right? As I mentioned, you can set them up inside of the rules section over here. So I can come in here and say, hey, I need to create a new monitoring rule. We can start identifying which users we want to target as part of this rule, and it'll run you through the full simulation. It'll show you the thresholds that it identifies. It'll allow you to run a test simulation so you can see the data that does come back, and you can fine-tune that data. You can go back and forth and adjust the thresholds as necessary, but it's not something that you have to statically choose up front, right? It'll identify those thresholds based on past behavior. And then you can set a schedule, have it run every so often, and then choose whenever this does run, who's notified of the report. Now, whenever these do run, it'll also place it all inside of this report category. So I can see all the reports that I've run in the past. So let's say we were looking at the ones in the past 6 months that I've run. We have this one that's predicting leavers. And what we're doing essentially is anyone that's given notice, right, you drop them into a category, and then you can monitor what they're doing within the system. So if they suddenly start exporting data out, you can flag that and detect that behavior. We also have one for Phishing Guard. This is just running across the entire firm. It's utilizing the past history that we have. It's comparing that user's activity with their own past activity as well as their peer group. So you can see in this case, I ran this back in January, and the results that came back were letting me know, hey, Jared in this case, who's, the circle is proportionately smaller than the rest of them over here, he's an urgent alert user that we need to take a look at. Now, why is this coming back? You'll see first, it happened on March 31st, but the reason it's coming back is his total activity count was almost 900. So if I click into Jared's activity, it'll give you that same view that you saw previously, right? But it's focusing this on the time frame that we ran this test on. So if we're running it across, 1 week, which it looks like it is in this case, it'll look at it based on that 1 week's worth of activity and show you where he exceeded his particular thresholds. So you'll see his client count spiked on the 23rd, right? Same thing as matter count. And his document count spiked on the 31st over here. So something from a document perspective happened when he was flagged as an urgent alert user. So you can drill down into any of these as you did before, download these reports. But in this chart over here, it'll show you which activity spiked. So he suddenly started viewing, mailing off, as well as exporting a lot more content than he's typically doing. And you can see it's fairly low, right? He's maybe viewing 10, 12 documents, mailing a couple dozen. But mailing over 200 documents, something definitely happened on the 31st. And this also traverses down from any other that we've audited in the system. So you can always also capture any of these logs and perform the analysis on them. Now I can also check Jared's activity in the past. So besides just seeing it from the bubble chart view, I can jump into the detail. And this is where it actually gives you the hard numbers for everything. So where this becomes useful is I can say, hey, show me how Jared's been performing in the past. And you'll see he got flagged on the 30th because his document count, mail count, export, and view count were crossing both thresholds. So first, it's crossing the group threshold, which is the peer group that we're running this rule against. But he's also passing his own individual threshold, right? He's working a specific way. Even though he may be working on more documents than his group, he suddenly started working on more documents than he himself has typically worked on. And that's a good indicator that lets us know something is definitely going on with Jared over here, right? Especially when he's mailing off over 200 files. So now this becomes a task for who's ever in charge of monitoring and running these rules to check with Jared what's going on. If you detect something is bad, right? If it's really high, disable his account, work with him, and figure out what's going on. It's not going to automatically disable the accounts for you, because if someone is legitimately working on these files, we obviously don't want to stop their work, right? So it is something that you would have to take an action and figure out what's going on.
Hey, Nabil, two questions. One question was, can you see what documents someone's touched when viewing the reports?
Yes, so you can jump inside of the document category as we were doing before, and this is where it's actually going to identify all the document and which activities they've taken on it. So then you can download this as a report.
And the other question was, do you need to be on iManage 10, or can you use this with older versions of iManage?
So you can use Threat Manager with older versions. The 10 piece is required if you want to plug it into Control Center, but it can exist as a standalone appliance if you're not using version 10. So you can use version 9 as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so that was the end of our demo. We covered the work integrations. We went through share, and then as well as the security pieces. So I'll hand this back to Gail, and then we can also go through Q&A, any questions that we've missed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim and Nabil. Okay, everyone, go ahead and submit your questions through the Q&A, and I'm going to be launching the evaluation. So if you could take just a few seconds of your time and complete that, that would be great. Also, while we wait for questions, I'd like to mention that a link to the recording will be on our website in a few days. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to you guys for the Q&A.
Thanks, Gail. We had a couple of questions. One question was about Mac users. Can you use offline files feature on an iPad with Word for iOS?
So if you're using iOS, you can download documents, folders, and Matter files offline. So you can cache those on an iOS device and work on them.
Got it. Did you want to talk a little bit about maybe the new client that's coming out with
Yeah,
Mac
there's
clients?
there's two pieces. So for the Mac, there's actually going to be a Mac integration. So you'll actually be able to have an integration within the Office suite as well as Mac Mail, Notes. So you'll be able to save documents, save emails into the system utilizing the Mac piece. And then the other side is iOS. iOS has an app which has already integration built in. So the Mac piece is currently targeted to be released GA at the end of June, and you can follow that announcement on our help portal. So that'll let you know all the features and functionality that's coming out with that one.
Okay, great. So kind of a general question, but one of the questions was, can you discuss Office 365 integration?
Yeah, so that can come in a lot of different flavors. So right now, if you're using Office 365 for your emails and you have all of your emails in the cloud, the communication server has an integration with Hosted Exchange. So you can hook that up and capture all of your emails, even if they exist in Office 365 and you're running the click to run module. That's exactly what we're using actually in this demo environment. All of our applications here are being streamed from Office 365.
What versions were you demoing earlier as far as the integration with Office?
2016.
2016, and what version of iManage?
This is 10.1.2.
10.1.2, okay.
Yeah.
Question about multi-factor authentication. Does iManage Share support multi-factor authentication?
That is a piece that is on the roadmap that is due out, I believe, in Q3. So the share piece currently does not, but it will be added in.
There was one or two questions about the differences between the old version of FileSite and the new version of the Outlook integration. Can you just touch on some of the high-level differences?
Yeah, so the old version FileSite, again, it was more of a classic integration, right, which was the COM add-in. From a functionality standpoint, we've taken as the majority of the use cases that we saw when you're working on the files and imported them in. But the main difference is the way it's integrated and presented to the users. So it's a different UI, right? You're not going to have the folder tree on the left-hand side. Instead, you'll have it on the right-hand panel in that web UI as you saw before. Installation for these, there could be a lot of different differences, but the main piece is when you install the Work 10 client, it adds everything. It adds your email management, it adds the Outlook integration inside of the other Office products, and also installs the agent down on the desktop. Now we also have a document that compares our classic clients with the new Work 10 clients, and that's also available on our help portal.
Got it. Thank you. What minimum Microsoft OS system or other IT infrastructure is needed to start using the iManage web interface?
So the web interface is really just browser dependent. The browser, when I was showing you the first piece where I was coming in through the browser, that's being accessed directly from the server, right? So if you've upgraded to Work 10, you'll have the web view available regardless of which device you come in from. Now, the application itself, the Office integration that you saw, that is dependent on Office 2013 or 2016. So that's the Visto add-in that we've developed with the web UI, but built it inside of the Office integration. That's what would require 2013 or 2016.
Got it. There was a question earlier on about declaring as a record. Can you remove the option that allows users to declare a record?
Yeah, so you can edit the right-click menu items in Control Center.
Thank you. Does the sharing functionality respect walls?
Using iManage Share with Security Policy Manager, it currently does not. If you share it off within an iManage Share folder, it's like sending it off as an attachment outside.
Got it. Will Threat Manager run against shared drives?
No. the only audit history that we're capturing that's within the iManage audit log.
Okay. There's a question, is the webcast available for replay? Yep, Gail could send out information on that. Let me see if there's anything else. There's a question about share earlier. It said, what is a secure link?
A secure link is just a download link that we're sending off. And what makes it secure is you can set an expiration date on it, and you can choose which email addresses have access to that link. And the way that we do that is when you send a secure link off, it's going to send an email off to that email address. That user will click on that link, and it's going to ask them to identify their email address. Once they identify their email address, they'll then receive an actual download link to the document. So that way it's contained for the users who you actually want to send it off to, and they can't forward that link off to anyone else.
Got it. Thank you. Another share question. Have you integrated any third-party metadata scrubbers on the share feature?
So Workshare and Litera, I believe, have developed it previously for the classic integrations with iManage 9. I don't know if they've yet updated it for Work 10, but that was there in the past. So whenever you do copy anything to the shared repository, it would utilize either of those for the scrubbing.
This is a popular question we've heard before in some of our previous presentations. Can you install and run both file site and desk site and the new Work 10 client on the same PC?
You can. They can exist on the same machine. There are specific versions, though. So we have a supported platform guide that's out there that'll let you know which versions of desk site and file site can be concurrently installed with the Work 10 add-on. So just check that, but they can be on the same machine.
Got it. Are recent matters and My Matters list unlimited, or is the number listed set to a default number?
And so you can add as many as you want on there, but there's pages now. So you'll just go through additional pages. If there are more than, I believe, 50 coming back in one page, it'll have additional pages for those.
There was a question about iManage Cloud. I'm not sure I understood the question directly, but it says, does use of the iManage Cloud provide an advantage over on-prem?
Yeah, that'll be a long, deeper conversation that we could have if you want to start engaging with that.
Okay, all right, we could follow up with that person. I think it was a follow-up question on the share external link. Can the secure link be sent externally?
Yes.
Yes, obviously there you could have external users. There was a question if we could re-show the Word integration. I think if there's anyone on this call that would want additional information or additional demo, you could reach out to me directly. It's jim.morio@cornerstone.it. It's, again, jim.morio@cornerstone.it. We're a long-time ILTA partner, a long-time iManage partner, and be happy to provide a one-on-one demo. There are a few other questions, but Gail, I know we're coming close to the top of the hour. Did you want to add anything?
No, and what we can do, Jim, is I can export all the questions, and then any of the ones that you did not answer, you can go ahead and answer it in a document format, send it to me, and I can post it with the presentation.
Got it. Well, Gail and Nabil, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is sort of wrapping up one of the ILTA roadshows where we hit about 9 different cities, and so some of the folks that couldn't attend or because of that was on this, and looked like you had a good showing. So thank you for having us.
Thank you both. Everyone, have a great day, and look forward to you guys attending the next one. Thanks, everyone.